So in this video, we're going to have a look at how we combine Adobe Illustrator with Eurosystem's OptiScout. So how do we create files in Illustrator that work perfectly in Eurosystem's OptiScout? So the first thing we're going to have a look at is we're going to have a look at our Illustrator setup. Now in Illustrator, we're going to be working in spot colors. Now you can actually work in spot colors, layers, or just standard colors if you want. But I find spot colors are the easiest thing for us to program between Illustrator and OptiScout. So if I go into Illustrator, we can see that we have my standard setup in here. Now I've created this palette. So all I've done is I've gone to swatch libraries and I've saved it in there, and I've created a swatch for myself of a few different spot colors. And you can see that they're spot colors because they've got this little white mark at the bottom of them. And what that means is that this is a coded color. So the color doesn't mean anything. The color is absolutely sort of not crucial to this job. So all it is that when it reads the file, it's going to read the word reg marks for that line, and it's going to split it out into a separate line in OptiScout. We are going to marry up these spot colors in OptiScout so it knows what to do with them. So as you can see, I've got a few in there: reg marks, kiss cut, cut, crease, partial cut, drill, V-notch, and wash, and V-groove. And these layers, these names, they don't really mean anything. The only one that's really important is reg marks. So with reg marks, we've got to actually then tell OptiScout that it's going to use that layer as a reg mark. So I'm going to create a quick job in here. So I'm just going to put out a few shapes, just like this. And with each of those shapes, I'm going to basically create a different layer. So I'm going to just define the colors of these. There we go. So the stroke then just needs to be one of these. So I'm going to go kiss cut. Around. And turn off the fill. This one is going to be cut, crease, partial cut, drill, V-notch, wash, V-groove. I'm going to leave this one as nothing. So I also like to define layers as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a layer for each of my elements in my artwork. Now the reason why I do this is because it means that I can then easily adjust the artwork, or I can play around with the layers, and it just makes it a lot easier to deal with. So there's my layers. Now, it would be very uncommon to have this many different cut layers in a job, but it just shows that we can do this. So then all I need to do is put those onto the new layer. Place those in place. Okay. So now that should be that we have one for every layer colour in there, bar the one that doesn't have any setup. So that is your separate layers. So if this was going to be set up as a job, you'd have your artwork layer, and then you'd have all your different cut layers. So you'd have your artwork down here, and obviously all your other artwork layers, and then you'd have all your cut files on top of it, just like that, nice and simple. Now with registration marks, if I'm setting up reg marks in Illustrator, all I do is I go to my ellipse tool. I'll then set the size as 6mm, because that's the size of the reg marks that we're going to be using. I'm going to turn the stroke off, and then we're going to set the fill to our reg marks colour. And then if I just copy those, I can then put those around my job. Now when you're setting up registration marks manually, it's always good to make sure that they're pretty straight. If they're not, then it's going to take longer for your cutter to try and find them, because it will be moving all over the place. There we go. So there's a file set up ready to go, ready to send to our cutter. So I'm now going to save this, so file, save as, and I'm going to save it as a PDF document. So PDF, and save there. So now that's saved, we're going to go over to OptiScout. So in OptiScout, we need to make sure that our layers are correct in here. So at the top here, we have this little layers palette. And as you can see, I've got quite a few different ones in there, but I don't have my setup that I've just used in Illustrator. So I'm going to go to this little sort of arrow key there. I'm going to go to load palette. So I have just a standard palette which I've created in here, and you can see that it brings in the exact same names that I had on the in the Illustrator. So to create that, all you need to do is you basically can create a new palette in here, and then you can go new, and you can then set the name of that layer, and you can set the all the information of it, and then basically you can save that as a palette. So you just create that. Once you've done that, you press save palette as, and then you can then create your own palette. So I'm going to go back to my standard one, so I'm going to load palette, go to standard, and then open that there. Now if you'd like to save this palette into your system, you can go save palette as and save it as well. So if I go back into here, now if I then file import, go onto my desktop and find my file that I've just made. There we go. So we've called it OptiScout cutter test. And there you go. So what we'll see is that it's brought in all my layers. So we can see V-groove, wash, crease, kiss cut, V-notch, partial cut drill. Then it's also brought in the artwork layer as well. And that's because I didn't turn it off in Illustrator. So normally what we'd want to do is we'd turn that one off, so therefore it won't be bringing that one in. Now the other thing that we can see is that my registration marks haven't come in correctly. So we know that a reg mark should look like a circle with a cross through the middle of it, and mine haven't. Now one of the things I didn't do is I didn't put those onto their own layer. So let's make a layer for reg marks. There we go, I'm going to put that at the top. So then I'm going to just copy those out and put those into my reg marks layer. So now we've got reg marks in there. Let's check that they're on the correct spot colour, which they are. So let's try sending that again. So this time I'm going to turn off the artwork layer. Now we've actually got, so that's on the artwork layer. Let's bring that one back in there. So we'll turn off that one, and we'll go File, Save As, and we'll save it at the top of that. So now if I bring that job in again, file import, so this time we have now got a reg mark layer, so reg marks at the top, but it's still not coming in correctly. You'll also notice that it still brings in the artwork layer even though we've hidden it in Illustrator. And that's because OptiScout seems to be very clever and it wants to bring in those hidden layers as well. So if you want to make your file size smaller, so you don't have the artwork layer in there, you will need to delete the artwork layer out of your cut output. So we can do that in here though. So we can select that layer by pressing on the little blue tab, and I can press delete, and then that gets rid of that. Now the other thing then is looking at why are our reg marks not coming in correctly. So I'm going to go to settings, standard settings, and I'm going to go to import. So I need to look at PDF import. Now at the moment we're not actually using any specific settings. So if I go to use specific settings here, and then we can see, so there's a few things in here that I change. Close to active job just means that it's going to close if you've got a job going over the top of another job, it will close that job, so I'm going to do that. And then we've got conversions. So here it says search and replace alignment marks in the following layers. So it's going to find the alignment marks from the layers reg marks, which is what we've got, register or reg. Now we can add anything in here if we want to. So if you're using Onyx, it might look like this. Like this. And that will now find those reg marks and it will reassign them for us. I'm going to press OK. It won't do it automatically, so I'm going to file import again. I'm going to press open. Yes. And then what we'll see this time is we've now got registration marks. So they're working perfectly. And again, I can get rid of that artwork layer. Delete that. And we've now got a job which is perfectly set up with multiple different layers and registration marks coming from Illustrator. So that's a bit of an in-depth view of how we can set up a job in Illustrator to work perfectly in Eurosystem's OptiScout.